Over the past 9 to 12 months, we've seen interest rates climb at a record pace, driving down buyer demand all across the country. At the same time, inventories are skyrocketing, price reductions are on the rise. Many marketplaces have already lost record price decrease. We had the Case-Shiller Index come out 2 times in a row, showing that price is crumbling even faster than the 2008 housing crisis. Now, all of this happening, Florida keeps setting records in terms of its population growth. Much of the Florida marketplace does not have these increasing inventory levels, and a lot of folks around the country take a look at our state and think they must be immune to recession. But I've got bad news for 5 popular oceanfront towns that are destinations for many for tourism, but also for second home buyers, for those across the country. And these marketplaces are showing structural issues right now that look similar to some of the worst marketplaces throughout the country. Now, a lot of folks and gurus say, hey, buy oceanfront property, it's irreplaceable, it never goes down. But I hate to tell you folks, if you take a research on the 12 to 14 years ago, the last time the market ballooned out of control and prices eventually cratered in all of those areas. So this idea that, hey, they're not making oceanfront anymore, it never goes down. It's not immune to market recession. Now, I will tell you this. I did a complete coastal search. It took me nearly 3 days to go from Jacksonville down to Miami, go around the tip of Florida on the south to Naples and then Tampa, all the way around the Panhandle. Much of the housing markets on the coastal regions, especially along the East Coast where the Atlantic Ocean is, are holding strong. They're in great shape. They look very much similar to the rest of the state, but there are 5 that are popular, that are beautiful cities that the market is in serious trouble. And it's going to present possible buying opportunities in the next 18 months. And for sure, prices need to correct a long way before you end up finding yourself a great deal. But I can tell you this, folks, as sellers catch on, there's going to be some pain. There's going to be some opportunities for people to help those sellers out. And I'm putting it there for you. And before I dive into the ocean, you dive down below and smash that like button as a big thank you for all the research that I did. Now, I get it. There's tons of these stupid top 5, top 10 lists all over the internet, both in blog form and on YouTube. This is not one of those cheap, shallow, poorly thought out lists. I sifted through Redfin data, Realtor.com, Zillow. I'm also a broker and board member with the Florida Association of Realtors, so I had access to MLS data, but I also pulled some census data so that I could see what's going on with income data versus home prices, as well as the level of mortgage volume that's going on in these particular cities. Are a lot more people borrowing than they used to, just to see as many different trends as I could. Now, the homes that made the list are the ones where people have absolutely fled the market. Inventory is crashing to all-time highs. Some of these markets 400% inventory increase. Prices went ridiculously hot, and now they have a record volume of price reductions. The other thing too, if the city did not line up right on the coast, I did not put it in the list. There's a lot of cities that sit on bays or internal rivers that are just off of the coast. And I'll give you an example: Vero Beach, Tampa Bay. There's land on Panama City Beach, and then there's a city right behind it in the bay. So these are waterfront, highly desirable areas where sellers have the deck stacked against them. Houses aren't selling, and price reductions are out of control, where sellers are doing everything they can to get out in these cities. Our number 5 city takes us to the Panhandle. It's the northernmost oceanfront city, if you will, and it's actually on the Gulf of Mexico. It's Panama City Beach, also called Florida's Emerald Coast, sometimes called the spring break capital of the world. Its beautiful beaches, great nightlife, countless theme parks and arcades make it a great place to take a break. But let's get into the market, folks. Here in 32407's the main zip code we're focusing on, check out this market skid. You had this market peak at 288,000. Now, I like to see what each of these markets did in the past. How did the last run up take place? What happened after? Because some of these markets, they had a massive fall after the market run up last time. Gives us an indication. And also, you want to see the velocity of how price grew this time. So as you can see, last time we hit 288,000 at PCB. It crashed back down, lost nearly half its value to 157,000. And look, it hit that high mark of 2006. It hit actually after the pandemic. So it was actually after the pandemic before the market grew. And then obviously, like many of the more affordable cities. I mean, for this to be an oceanfront, high tourism area, the Gulf, particularly the North Gulf, is not the most frequent areas, not much as, as Tampa and the Central Florida beaches. But this one obviously took off. You had around a $270,000 price point and it just exploded up over 417. What happens at that point? Well, your for sale inventory is off the charts here. This is one of the reasons that I put this on, because this is much, much different than many of the markets around the coastal areas. None of them are doing this. This is above pre-pandemic levels. You could see 2019, there's only 194 houses on the market in a typical market. And at this point, you have buyers in sheer shock. Now look what's happening. You have a 24.6%, 25% price reduction level. So it's 1 out of 4 listings cutting their price in order to sell. Obviously against history, you had 2020, obviously the pandemic probably drove that up. But 24% is a high number. It's going to go a lot higher, folks. This market is just getting underway. Let's take a look at the house payment data. This is important as well. You can see really kind of running into the pandemic, this marketplace really just is a very affordable market. It was around $1,000 a month to have a mortgage payment here, and it's almost triple, folks. $2,709 a month. And obviously we're going to see this a lot. We want to watch those house payments because a lot of these house payments are being made by Airbnb. And Airbnb, as we know, is in trouble. So if Airbnb is not doing great in a lot of these marketplaces, they're not going to cover the rent. And that's a big part of this. Everybody bought back in this hype thinking, hey, you know what, I can handle this. I can buy this house. It's going to be fine. And then it ultimately doesn't become so. And then they have trouble keeping the house rented. And it becomes a squeeze and they have to get rid of it. This is one more graph I want to show you. This is very, very important. This is what's really troubling the market. Obviously, I showed you the payment a second ago. I showed you how Airbnb is going to make those markets tough to afford. But look at the local situation. If you're a local living here, maybe they're there to absorb some of this marketplace, and that's obviously not going to happen. Affordability really stayed around 20% in this market. So you see this dotted line, that's kind of like a historic number of what most folks were making versus what their house payment would cost them. And now it's just shot off the map. And one of two things, as you're going to see with all these oceanfront towns, either the prices are going to come down or the interest rates are going to come down dramatically. I got to tell you folks, interest rates are not coming down anytime soon, not in a meaningful way to really suppress these percentages that you're seeing on the screen. As a result, in these 5 cities I'm going to walk you through, you're going to see values in these markets first, because these are extraordinarily high numbers for oceanfront towns. Let's move to number 4. Number 4, we're still on the Gulf side of the state of Florida, but we are moving further south, just off St. Pete to Treasure Island. And what is not to love? Treasure Island Beach offers a large beachfront of lush white sand along the Gulf. You can walk the entire stretch from the bridge at St. John's Pass all the way to the tip of Sunset Beach and remain on public beach for the entire walk. This area has some beautiful real estate as well, but let's dive into the numbers of how this beautiful Tampa St. Pete marketplace here against the Gulf has made our list. Look at this. This is one of the most steady Eddie marketplaces that you'll ever find on the ocean. Now, I say that because you can see the velocity of year. It's just 5% bump, 5% bump, 6, 7 on occasion, but most of the time is just a very common number. Let's look at the peak. You had a $410,000 plateau over the peak when the last bubble popped. This thing rode back down to $230,000. And take a look. It passed $410,000 back in 2019. And that's interesting to put because that really marks when things get interesting for a market. When you started to see a lot of these marketplaces kind of hit against that peak, that's when people really started to say, wow, is this really going to keep going up or not? And go up, it did. Look, it went from 410, it hit $430,000 by 2020. So 20 had a 5% increase into the pandemic. And then it just went vertical, going almost to $700,000 in 2.5 short years. And that's when you start to see things get a little bit sketchy. Take a look at the sales. So we're going to pop over to Redfin's data for a second. You had 112 homes sell last month, which is nearly down by half for the same month year over year. Now look at this. That's actually up. You can see in January is even lower. It's maybe around 100 homes. And this is bad, folks. When you look back 5 years, a lot of these beach towns that are seeing their inventory shoot off the map, their price reductions are cruising. It's because the sell through is just so bad. As you can see, when sales languish, inventory here is climbing off the charts. Look at this, folks. Over 1 in 3 listings, sellers are hitting the exits. They're trying to be next out, and there's so few homes selling that sellers are starting to panic. Check out the for sale inventory. It's up to 180. Again, this is only the number 4 ranked city. You can see it's going in a bad direction. When it really starts to get on path with a normal year, you have inventory just spiking back up when no buyers are buying. Price reductions are going to get higher. And right now, folks, it's incredibly high. Let's look at the monthly share of house payment. This is incredibly important in a lot of these markets, as I mentioned before, because you got to think about what Airbnb was doing. It's pretty easy to make some money when everybody's paying about $2,000 a month for their payment for their property, but it doubled, folks, more than doubled. It's over $4,300 a month now. And with that being said, it's just getting untenable for these properties to make money. Sellers are going to feel a squeeze and sell these properties out. Another graph we like to look at for affordability's sake, what's going to happen with people being able to hang on, is the actual median income in relation to the cost. The cost of their house was approximately 30%. You can see it's double that. It's almost 60%. It's shot off the charts in terms of how expensive a home is to maintain for the locals. And again, that's important. When investors are not there anymore, you rely on some of the locals, the people moving in that want to live there full time, and it's just unreachable with the income levels. All right, folks, for the first time, we're moving ourselves to the east coast of the state of Florida against the Atlantic Ocean to Ormond Beach. Now, Ormond Beach is just north of famed Daytona Beach. And while it's equally nice, it's considered much less crowded than Daytona Beach. This beach was billed as the main thing to do here, but visitors also love to visit the coastal parks and the scenic bike loops and all the trails and things that are to do in this beautiful area. But also, one of the area's claim to fame is John D. Rockefeller's winter home was restored to its former glory, considered a national landmark, but it's a fun tour to have while you're in the area. Now, when you're talking about the East Coast, making this list was tough. In fact, there's only one city on the East Coast that actually made the list, and Ormond Beach made it because they have nearly a 300% climb in inventory, price reductions are off the charts, and the marketplace has shifted very quickly. Now, that is in stark contrast to all other cities from Jacksonville all the way to Miami. Everything on that side has incredibly low inventory. Price reductions are low as can be, except for this area. And honestly, folks, I don't think sellers probably know just how much their market here has shifted, and it has. But let's take a look at the numbers. So you had, again, this market peak at 278,000 back, when the market crash was there. Look at how slowly this market just climbed back. Dropped down to 146, never got really that expensive overnight. Coming into 2020, it still was below the 2007 highs, and then it shot up to 390,000. Let's take a look at the rest. For sale inventory dropped down to 45 units last year. It went up fourfold, literally in the last 12 months. Now, as a result, price reductions are off the charts, okay? Last month, you can see it just bottomed out 74 homes sold, which represents a 56.5% drop year over year. Now, if you look at this graph, you can see that this particular market kind of maintains right around 180 units sold, somewhere in this line. I mean, sometimes it dips, but if you kind of balance it all out, it's somewhere around 180, upper 100s. It's now below 100, folks, and it's sailing downward. And again, this is happening, folks, on the backdrop of the marketplace when it's supposed to do better. You have, particularly in November, when the snow starts to fall up north, we all know that tons and tons of people are coming from up north. They come to our marketplace. A lot of them have cash in their pockets or cash plus a mortgage, and they buy up our real estate. And look what happens, folks. People sat on their hands, did not purchase. As a result, price reductions mounted, and it's costing folks in this area. And again, if you look at more of the data, you can see in this area that folks that live here, it's getting unaffordable for them. Folks in this area are just not understanding that there's a massive amount of competition that there hasn't been. And as a result, price reductions are going to have to happen. But Ormond Beach is the soft spot on the East Coast. Couple more graphs here in Ormond Beach. Average payment here for a very long time was right around $1,200 a month. It's shot up now to $2,553 a month. I know a lot of you throughout the country say, man, I'd really take that payment. Of course we would, but that's where it is. It's a big number for a lot of the folks in this area. Last graph here in Ormond, look at a percentage of median income going to a payment. So the affordability factor is just inside of 30%, where this dotted line is. For a very long time. This has become one of the biggest problems, is that until the interest rate comes down or the price, these people are not going to get in this marketplace. They're pulling back. You're seeing it in the sell-off, and that's why prices are going to come down. Number 2, let's jump to the west coast side of the state. We are back off the coast of the Tampa area, just south of Clearwater Beach. We are at Indian Rocks Beach, and this is a very, very nice place with excellent beaches. The small beach town has a nice mixture of restaurants, beaches, parks, and other amenities for both tourists and residences. The beaches here are known to be clean with beautiful white sand and easy available parking. Now, if you're in the market for a beautiful beach town and you want a deal, look no further. This area has got some room to come down on price, but you've got some motivated sellers, folks. You're going to see it in the data. I'm going to show it to you today. Let's jump in. Look at this. You had a $433,000 peak in 2007. This marketplace has been kind of doing that steady climb all the way back up into 2020, where they hit a $504,000 price. Again, that's fast. Particularly the last 5-6 years, this market's been fast growing. This one was flaming hot before the pandemic. And again, this one's number 2 because aside from number 1, the amount of gain in the last 4 years is just insane, folks. It is incredible. And that's the reason why people and buyers particularly are just pulling back at record pace. So you can see right here, this marketplace, again, smaller market, but you still see 20, 25, 30 homes a month selling. And buyers are saying the last 5 months, not happening. Barely 10 homes selling. As a result, we're seeing home inventory going through the roof when it shouldn't be, because people aren't selling. It's tripled, and it's on its way back to normal market mode. You have some of the highest price reductions percentages from a listing standpoint of any market on the coast in Florida. This is the record, folks. 1 out of 2 sellers on Indian Rocks Beach has reduced the price because they can't move their house. Buyers aren't lining up, they're not coming for them, and they have to reduce in order to sell. So as a result, remember, it's never about the market itself. It's about the seller. The sellers have to be motivated. If the sellers move the price, the market is going to come down. It's about the seller. One seller from the next, each one is different. And in this market, for whatever reason, you are seeing folks that have read the tea leaves and saying, man, this jig is up. We have to get out. House payment as a percentage of median income. Obviously, the locals are saying, see you later. It's always been a more expensive market, as we've known. 35% is this dotted line, which means it's really on the barrier of unaffordable for a very, very long time for a lot of the people who live here. And right now, it's just gone to the moon at 70%. Nobody can qualify. Now, number 1, we moved just a little south. We're across Tampa Bay to the south, in fact, to Anna Marie Island. This beautiful, beautiful small town is just north of Bradenton Beach. This one is a surprise and a delight to find a place like this that's still around. It's a low-rise beach town where a few quaint cottages survive in a largely residential community. There's no commercialization here. On Anna Marie Island, things to do means walking to the beach or watching wading birds or dolphins at the shore. And I gotta tell you folks, this is a little point of land at the tip of an island, and it is just beautiful. I mean, if you've never stayed there, the secret's obviously out, and this particular community has had insane equity. I mean, it has blown up so high. Few markets in the Florida area have the performance that this marketplace has. And as a result, you have to believe
that there is going to be a massive correction because the data has come to a screeching halt. Buyers have absolutely hit the brakes on Anna Maria Island, have absolutely stopped, stunned in the face of how high prices have come here, and we're starting to see the tide turn. Let me show you what I mean. Now, this particular market went up in value and it peaked in the last market, but it sort of held its own. Where you saw a lot of markets in 2007 kind of rise to a peak and slide down the other side halfway, this market did not see that happen. So one of the things you can see here, it went to 881,000. So it was an expensive market. This is probably double the closest market that we saw in oceanfront towns today in terms of peak comparison to 2008 at 881,000, back 12, 13 years ago. It only came down to about 626. It only lost a percentage of its value, but it soared past that. It was past 881 in like 2015 or 2016. It was past its 2007 number. And as it peaked towards 1 million, it started to stall out coming into 2020. But folks, it just went straight up. Over the past 2.5 years, this marketplace, like no other, there were zero price reduction. Everything was multiple offers. I'm telling you, I suspect there's probably a lot of PPP government stimulus money of all kinds of people who got all kinds of dollars out of their companies and planted it in markets like this one. I just saying, folks, one of the things that has absolutely changed in this marketplace that was not like the last time is a lot of this is leverage money. One of the graphs that I saw is that we doubled the amount of mortgages in this area in the last 2 years alone. One of the reasons you're going to see challenges in this market is this right here. You can see over time that this small marketplace, it'll hold 100, 200 listings at a time, and it will sell 15, 20 homes every single month like clockwork. It has absolutely, from April of last year, just gotten quieter and quieter and quieter and quieter, and barely now they're lucky if they'll sell 5 or 6 homes in a given month. Last month, 2 homes were sold in the entire town, which is 86% down from the prior year, folks. That is bad news when you have, 90, 100 people trying to get out, many of those people maybe needing to sell. As a result, you're going to see price reductions come off the floor. Look at price reductions. The last 2 years, 0%. We didn't see a 0% number in any market today. It is now 1 in 3 are now price reducing, and they're having to, and they will continue to in order to get out of the market. There's just no way around it. You have this reverse auction effect. The idea that sellers are now going to have to test the price lower and lower and lower to find the buyer. Think about it. When only 2 or 3 buyers are there, and some of these sellers can't wait forever. They bring the price down, they find new bottoms. And again, I know what you're saying. Jared, it's $2 million average price. And honestly, if you look at last month, it's a $4.8 million average price with 116% year over year. I mean, maybe some of those mortgages go bad. Maybe some of those people get in trouble, and maybe you start to see some really, some low sales in this place. Anna Maria Island is one to watch because the data is in. You got 400% increase in inventory, not because a ton of people are listing in mass, but because no one is buying it. And as the sellers stare on the buyers wait out the sellers, and the sellers keep bringing the price down, and the averages will drop, folks. Let's continue the conversation in the below. If you've watched this far, do me a favor, drop a comment. Say hi, say thanks, say this is some of the markets I like to see an update on. And secondly, hit the subscribe button. And if I can help you make a decision on real estate anywhere in the state of Florida, I'm a broker here, I can help you out. info@jaredjones.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.